Hey, so you ever come across someone who only seems to care about you when it's convenient for them? You know, they need something from you or they want your attention. Okay? But otherwise, they don't really seem to care much about you at all, okay? And the worst part is, you probably can't even pinpoint exactly why they're acting like this. You just get the sense that they're not being genuine. Well, today, I'm going to tell you a story about a woman named Fiona, a city girl who moves to the country and meets a mysterious woman who becomes her neighbor. This is the story of the fox and the stork. Fiona was a very talented young artist whose paintings were becoming more and more popular every day. People loved her work. They loved how she captured moments in time with such precision and detail. But Fiona was never satisfied with her work. She felt she could always do better, and she was tired of living in the city where everything and everyone distracted her. So one day she packed up her things and moved out to the countryside to a big old house with a sprawling garden, hoping to find peace and quiet out there. She had only been living in the house for a couple weeks when one day she noticed an unusual sight. A beautiful white stork stood patiently by the mailbox, refusing to leave until its red leather satchel was delivered inside. At first, Fiona thought it was just some weird delivery mix-up. But then, she saw the same thing happen again the next day and the day after that. The stork would arrive, refuse to budge, and then eventually Fiona would have to go out and find whoever ordered the mail. It turned out it was Mrs. Featherstone, an elderly woman who lived down the road. Apparently, she was expecting some important correspondence and didn't trust the mailman to deliver it directly to her doorstep. And so every day she sent the stork to collect her mail. Fiona thought this was pretty ridiculous, but she also found it endearing. So she decided to pay Mrs. Featherstone a visit. As she drove past Mrs. Featherstone's house, she noticed it looked exactly like the old folks' home she used to visit with her mother before she passed away. There were no cars in the driveway, no lights on inside the house, and the whole place just seemed abandoned. When Fiona finally knocked on the door, she was surprised to see that Mrs. Featherstone wasn't actually old at all. In fact, she was very young, no older than Fiona herself. Mrs. Featherstone explained that she had just moved in and was trying to make some improvements to the house, but that she needed a lot of supplies and tools that she couldn't carry herself. And so she hired the stork to help her. Fiona didn't really understand this, but she was still eager to make a new friend. So she offered to help Mrs. Featherstone carry in the packages herself. When they got outside, Fiona noticed that instead of supplies, most of the boxes contained furniture. Mrs. Featherstone quickly realized what Fiona had seen and apologized, explaining that she had made a mistake in hiring the stork. She said, "I wanted to renovate the house, but I never thought I'd need so many things. I don't have any friends or family who could help me move these things, and I certainly can't carry them all myself." The stork seemed like the perfect solution. I mean, it's not like he's going to ask for anything in return, but Fiona shook her head. She knew from experience that no one gives anything without expecting something back. She told Mrs. Featherstone that if she wanted some help moving stuff, she should just ask a local moving company. But Mrs. Featherstone insisted that she had already paid the stork, and she didn't feel right asking him for more time. She said he deserves a break from carrying heavy boxers. Besides, I kind of like having the stork around. It keeps me company. Fiona didn't buy this for a second, but she didn't press the issue. Instead, she spent the rest of the afternoon helping Mrs. Featherstone move everything in. All the while, Fiona couldn't help but stare at the stork, who seemed to be watching her intently. Every now and then, he would take off into the air and circle around her, which made Fiona feel very uncomfortable. As soon as it started getting dark, Fiona left. She waved goodbye to Mrs. Featherstone and promised to come back the next day to help finish everything. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just made a big mistake. The following day, Fiona came back to Mrs. Featherstone's house, ready to help with the renovations. But she was shocked to find that the stork had already finished everything. He had put all of the furniture in the right place, and he had even hung some pictures on the wall. But the craziest thing was that Mrs. Featherstone was nowhere to be found. The front door was wide open, and Fiona could see that Mrs. Featherstone's bed hadn't even been slept in. It looked as though she had never even lived here. Just then, the stork landed on the windowsill and stared at Fiona. For a moment, neither of them said anything.
Ow.
Then the stork finally spoke. His voice sounded like gravel grinding together. He said, "Are you looking for Mrs. Featherstone?" "I haven't seen her since yesterday morning," Fiona asked. "You haven't seen her? But she lives here, or at least she did. Where could she have gone?" The stork shrugged his wings and replied, "Like I said, I haven't seen her." Since yesterday morning, she seemed very happy here, didn't she? You know, most people aren't cut out for country life. They come here seeking peace and quiet, only to find that it's too boring for them and they go back to the city. Maybe she's done just that. Fiona thanked the stork for his help and told him that she was going to look around outside to see if she could find Mrs. Featherstone. She walked around the property for a bit, but there was no sign of Mrs. Featherstone anywhere. Finally, she went back inside to look around. That's when she noticed a small diary sitting on the table. She opened it and started reading. At first, it was hard to make sense of the diary because the handwriting was messy and the words were jumbled. But as Fiona read on, she began to understand. This diary belonged to Mrs. Featherstone, and the entries were filled with thoughts about how excited she was to finally have her own place, how she was tired of living with her parents, and how she couldn't wait to start her new life here in the countryside. But as Fiona continued reading, the tone of the diary entries changed. They became more and more frantic, more desperate. Mrs. Featherstone started talking about how lonely she was, how the house was too big, and how she regretted leaving the city. Then the last entry, written in a shaky hand, simply said, "What have I done?" Just then, the stork appeared behind Fiona. He said, "Did you find anything interesting?" Fiona closed the diary quickly, embarrassed that she had been reading someone else's private thoughts. She told the stork that she found the diary, but she didn't say anything about what was written in it. She didn't want the stork to think that she was gossiping about his client. But the stork nodded and said, "Mrs. Featherstone is a strange one, isn't she? I've been bringing her mail for over a week now, and not once has she asked about who delivered it. Not once has she even looked me in the eyes. She treats me like I'm nothing more than a servant, like I'm not even a real person." Fiona stared at the stork for a moment, trying to understand what he was saying. Then she finally asked, "Wait, you're telling me that you work for this woman, but you don't know where she went?" The stork nodded again. "That's right. She pays me to do her bidding, but I don't know anything about her. Doesn't speak to me. She doesn't acknowledge me. To her, I am nothing more than a tool to be used and discarded at will." Fiona felt a surge of anger. She understood what it was like to be treated like a tool. She knew what it was like to be taken advantage of. She reached out and touched the stork's wing. She said, "Don't worry. I'm not going to let this woman take advantage of you anymore." The stork looked at Fiona, confused. He didn't understand what she was saying. Why would she defend him? He was just a bird, wasn't he? But Fiona didn't care. She was determined to help the stork, even if it meant ruining Mrs. Featherstone's plans. And that's the end of part 2. Please stay tuned for part 3. And don't forget to subscribe for more great stories. Thanks for watching.